It is an option found in the principle that people in every nation can enhance the social dimension of their lives by acting as committed and responsible citizens, not as a mob swayed by the powers that be. That is based on the Joy of the Gospel number 220. God redeems each person, but only along with and in relation to the people among whom they live. What does this word people or pueblo mean to Pope Francis? Francis used the word people in three interrelated meanings. First, people as poor, that is in socio-economic dimension. Second, people as nation in the political dimension. And lastly, people as faithful in the religious dimension. The people as poor are those who are marginalized and excluded from the main channels of social, economic, and political participation. In the Argentina of the 1970s, the term referred to the workers and the destitute. People in this category today have no real possibility of development. Their lives are marked by misery and exclusion. They are the ones most affected with the present system of global development, and they make up most of the humankind. So that is the concept of the three different people according to Pope Francis. Now, let's go to the different points of Pope Francis wherein he elaboratedly discussed and presented his stand and view regarding this radical option for the poor. First, in his concept of mercy and joy. The previous popes, even Pope Francis, saw the concept of solidarity as crucial word. But for Pope Francis, the words mercy and joy take pride of place, as they are very significant in the title of the book Evangelii Gaudium, which put emphasis on joy in his message for Mission Sunday. This emphasis on mercy is linked to his frequent emphasis on the importance of tenderness, or what we call the revolution of tenderness. His strong insistence on the importance of mercy does not mean that he sees mercy as replacing justice and law. It is not enough for church leaders or for any Christians to insist on laying down laws or principles. Christians are called to hold onto and proclaim the basic principles of Catholic social teachings. But on the other hand, they must not apply these principles in a rigid, take it or leave it manner. Francis pointed out that cultures are quite diverse and that every general principle needs to be inculturated if it is to be respected and applied. He himself is a good model of how to combine strong condemnation of social evils with a non-judgmental attitude in relation to the individual person. Pope Francis also invites us, especially our dear readers in his Evangelii Gaudium, that following Jesus is by entering fully into the fabric of society, sharing the lives of all, listening to their concerns, helping them materially and spiritually in their needs, rejoicing with those who rejoice, and weeping with those who weep. He also emphasized that as we go arm in arm with others, we are committed to building a new world. And we do not so, and we do not so from a sense of obligation, not a burdensome duty, but as the result of a personal decision which brings us joy and gives meaning to our lives. That is based on Evangelii Gaudium number 269. Second is the capitalism and the poor. This new approach of Pope Francis is his extraordinary, blunt condemnation of the present world order, where there is an ever-widening gap between the rich and the poor. Based on Evangelii Gaudium number 53 and 56, states there that he spelled out the consequences of his ideologies, and what is new is the freshness and harshness of Francis' words and vividness. So let's go to the third point of Pope Francis. The third is the change in the structures. Francis advocates welfare programs to help the poor survive. Instead, he calls loudly for governments and society to bring about changes in the political economic structures. That is based on Evangelii Gaudium number 222 or 202 rather. He goes to the root of the problems and even goes so far as to say that the socio-economic system is unjust at its root. That is why he calls for radical change in the very structure of the economic system. He is adopting one of the main themes of liberation theology because his response to this theology is significantly different from that of Benedict XVI, his moralizing approach. This change of convictions and attitudes must lead to a change in lifestyle by those of us who are relatively well off. So let's go to the fourth point of Pope Francis. Fourth is the cry of the poor. The most frequent challenges posed by Pope Francis to Christians and to their pastors is to hear the cry of the poor. That is based on the Evangelii Gaudium number 191. His dream is of something much more than simple, providing them with what he calls a dignified sustenance. And these sustenance are the things that the poor need, such as education, access to health care, and above all, employments. For it is through free, creative, participatory, and mutually supportive labor that human beings express and enhance the dignity of their lives. The importance of just wage for an adequate access to all the other goods which are destined for our common use. Unfortunately, Francis knew that most of those who deny or lay down the need of radical change of structures are some of the church leaders and commentators who proclaim that their position is fully in line with the Catholic social teaching. The Pope referred a letter that had been written by Father Pedro Arrupe that emphasizes necessity for real contact with the poor, that is, the need to become acquainted with reality by experience. To spend time walking in the periphery in order to really become acquainted with the reality and life experience of people. Another significant insight from liberation theologians that Francis adopted wholeheartedly is not making an option for the poor that is one-way process. He maintains that Christians need to let ourselves be evangelized by them, to acknowledge the saving power at work in their lives, to find Christ in them, to lend our voice to their causes, to be friends, be listened to them, to speak of them, and to embrace the mysterious wisdom of God, which God wishes to share with us through them. That is based on Evangelii Gaudium number 198. The popular piety for or of the people, or the poor people rather, are the work of the Holy Spirit. This means that God uses their popular piety to share with us the divine mysterious wisdom. Although Francis adopted several key elements in liberation theology, he did not explicitly emphasize the need for empowered poor people to challenge the rich and the powerful. He begins by saying that their presence is a sign or witness to a reality that is often silenced, that the poor do not only suffer injustice, they also struggle against it. Francis delivered what one might almost call a diatribe against a whole list of abuses, which for him are an intrinsic aspect of the present unjust order. The poor alternative for this is a genuine and respectful urban integration, where every neighborhood is a real community in which the people have security of tenure and the area has adequate facilities such as schools, healthcare, and sports clubs. He also spoke with equal passion about abuses in relation to work, that the worst form of poverty and indignity is the creation of a situation where people cannot find work. It is a necessity, or it is not necessary that people be forced to work in what is euphemistically called the informal sector, and there is no need for people to be deprived of basic labor right. These injustices are the result of the deliberate prior decision by those in power to opt for a system that gives priority to profit rather than to human beings, and to throw away culture that treats humans as a consumer good. He addressed to the activists that the movements that they represent are active participation of great majorities as protagonists. This kind of proactive participation overflows the logical procedures of formal democracy. It involved the establishment of genuine solidarity, that this word solidarity means fighting against the structural causes of poverty and inequality, of lack of work, land and housing, and of the denial of social and labor rights. In its deepest sense, solidarity is a way of making history. More importantly, he insisted that love for the poor is a central element of the gospel. In condemning capitalism, he pointed out that business must serve the common good. Laudato Si number 129 says that business is a noble vocation directed to the producing wealth and improving the world. It can be a fruitful source of prosperity for the area in which it operates, especially if it sees the creation of jobs as an essential part for its service to the common good. In relation to politics, he did not hesitate to use controversial phrases such as unjust structures. He said that if politics must truly be at the service of the human person, it follows that it cannot be a slave to the economy and finance. Politics must serve the common good of a community which sacrifices particular interests in order to share in justice and peace, its good, its interest, its social life. Because those people around us who are trapped in a cycle of poverty need to be given hope.